Okay, welcome everybody. This series, this three-part series, is really designed to explore the ideas, the tensions, and real-world leadership challenges we'll be working through together at this year's summit. So for more information, go to 2026.leadershipforumcommunity.org. I am Rosie Corvo. I'm the Managing Director of UpSpiral Leadership, which is a human-centered leadership, organizational development, consulting, and coaching company. And today I'm going to be your facilitator, and joining me today is Bill Jensen, who is one of the co-authors of the new book, Humanity, Leading the Powershift, Keeping Humans in the Future of Work, and which this book is actually going to anchor the 2026 forum event. So Bill is the CEO of the Jensen Group, and he has spent decades rethinking how work gets done. And I think, Bill, what is this? Is this book number 11 for you?
10.
10. I never did ask you. What made you write this book?
The movie The Godfather has a quote in it where they go, "Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in." I was like easing into retirement. I was like, okay, I've been very lucky. I've been blessed. I've professionally hit my bucket list. I've traveled the world. I've spoken in all, scores of countries all around the world. And I was like, okay, I've done a lot. I'm done. And then I joined this group, based out of India, run by a guy by the name of Anish. And Anish pulled this group together, and they said, "Hey, we should write about a book about all these human-centered approaches we got." Little did I know that would pull me back into me authoring most of it, and them handling the other co-authors, handling a lot of the marketing and behind the scenes work. But the thing that I absolutely loved about it is throughout my entire career, I love creating new things. So I got really involved in the joy of creating a new book.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And so this part, right? We're in the third part of the series. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the responsibilities that we think leaders of all levels, and by the way, leadership being defined as leaders at all levels, whether you lead somebody or an individual contributor, we use the word leadership because we have to lead self, or we're leading others, or we're leading across organizations. So the responsibilities that we have as leaders and the decisions that we make are going to absolutely impact this whole future of work. And so that's what we're going to focus on in the third part of the series. So my first question is really about putting ourselves in the shoes of the average listener. So some people may think, I don't actually control the AI strategy. I didn't choose the technology, and I'm really not in a position to maybe impact those decisions. They're being done to me. So what would you say to somebody that really feels that this type of AI agency transition is largely out of their hands? What would you say to them?
Well, first, Rosie, I know you and I have this in common through your firm, UpSpiral, and my work. I know this is a continuing part of the leadership forum's philosophy, but where we have to start is being intentional about the future that we all want to create. So in life, there's a lot of things that are out of our control, probably most things.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is within our control we need to focus on first, and then how do we be intentional about creating that? So for people that may not be driving this change, it may be coming down from above them, or maybe forced by their industry is changing. The first thing is remember, going back to your point about leadership of self, that your first responsibility is to maintain control and to create your own destiny with what you can control. So uh, even though we're talking about AI and a technology, I want to begin with a humanist perspective of it. That was the title of the book, Humanity. But the humanist way of looking at this is I want us to think for a second about Harvard psychologist Robert Waldinger. He and his team just completed something that was started way before he even joined it, 85-year study with 724 people from around the globe that they started studying them as they were teenagers, and they watched them throughout their entire life. This is a Harvard study that went on for 85 years. They tracked all sorts of things, their cholesterol levels, their income levels, whether they were married or single or divorced or what happened, whether they had tragedy in their lives. They tracked everything in their lives. And after 85 years, they said, we found pretty much the definitive finding on what creates human happiness and long-term health. And it wasn't AI, it wasn't your career, it wasn't even necessarily where you lived or the food you ate. The primary driver was the quality of relationships we have.
Wow.
So the number one factor in your long-term health and happiness, regardless of whether you're living through the industrial age or whether you're living through the AI era, it's the quality of relationships that you have. Now that's spouse, that's children, that's friends, extended family, that's coworkers, relationships of all different kinds. And what I want to do is use that as a springboard. There are 5 things that you can do right now if you are intentional about thriving in the AI era as well as any other era. And the first thing, it goes to self-care. Protect your boundaries.
Mm.
Watch out for your nervous system. Now, this isn't necessarily applicable only to AI. It's universal.
Yeah.
Protect your space. The way we are working right now, we are all living in a 24/7 world. And more with the technologies that give us access to everybody, that also means everybody can access us. And deadlines can be imposed on us and schedules can be imposed on us. So being purely humanist without worrying about the technology or how you do it, use it for a second. Get enough sleep, drink plenty of fluids, get exercise, protect your boundaries. Make sure that you can take care of yourself and do enough self-care. So that's number one. Number two, I go back to Waldinger's findings. Invest in relationships. Now, that could be a study group, an AI study group, if you want to make it technology focused, but it doesn't have to be. It's invest in the relationships that matter most to you, because no matter what happens with AI, your family is always going to be by your side. Your spouse or your partner or your closest friends are your support network. And in previous books, I wrote one of them called Disrupt. I wrote the biggest way you can take a leap into a disruptive environment, and that you have the courage to take the leap, is to have your support network around you.
Mm.
So that could be anybody from, as I said, from a close relative to somebody whose couch you sleep on if you lose your income. It's all of that. Make sure, protect your boundaries, protect yourself, Invest in relationships. That's number 2. Number 3, I want you to define your non-automatable core. Who are you, regardless of who are you?
Mhm.
Regardless of the technology, just what do you do as a person that can't be automated? Do
Yeah.
people trust you? Are you nurturing? Are you a good communicator? Are you organized? Uh, are you good with budgets or numbers? Are you terrible with budgets, but you're good with creativity? Think about who you are that can't very well be automated, and make sure you focus on that. Make sure that you know what are your top 3 to 5 human-centered strengths.
Mhm.
Uh, for me, I mentioned earlier when you asked me the question about, they pulled me back in. I love what makes me happy, even if this book never went anywhere. It makes me happy to be creative.
Yeah.
So for the 3 to 5 months that I was working on this intensely, I was super happy, even though I was putting in long hours. That made me happy. And that being creative is my non-automatable core. Yes, somebody can take AI and create writing the way I write or graphics, but my creative energy needs to be involved, and that makes me happy. So figure out and list your 3 to 5 uh, self-centered, human-centered strengths. What makes you you? So far, I've listed 3 things: protect your boundaries, invest in relationships, and define your non-automatable core of who you are and invest in it. The fourth is, okay, enhance and expand that non-automatable core. In the book, we listed 7 core strengths and skills that everybody needs to have in the AI era. And I'll go through them quickly, but they are superpower skills that are non-automatable, that make you who you are. Listen to these 7 and think about them. And as I go through them, which are your top 1 or 2 strengths and which are your top 1 or 2 weaknesses or things that you could do better on? So there are 7 superpowers that all of us need in the AI era. The first is self-awareness, being aware of who you are and what your limits are. All of us have limits. All of us have strengths. All of us have weaknesses. And AI will always be the smartest person in the room. And it will know what you're good at and what you're not good at. You need to know that. So first of the 7 superpowers is self-awareness. Second is your ability to be clear, concise, and compelling in how you communicate. Because we are on an information overload world, we're in what has been called the attention economy. You need to compete for everyone's attention. So the second superpower is how good are you at communicating? The third is creativity, curiosity, and imagination. How good are you at looking at a blank page and creating something that didn't exist? That's going to be in demand more and more. The fourth is critical thinking, or being able to ask the best questions. Any of you that have used AI and are now doing prompts know AI just spits back at you what you ask for. And if you're not good at asking a really good question, you don't get a nuanced answer. So asking the best questions when AI is smarter than everybody is a compelling superpower skill, because somebody in the room has to know what's the best question to ask right now. So that's 4. Number 5 is your personal agility, your ability to quickly unlearn, relearn, unlearn, relearn, unlearn, relearn continuously. So your personal agility is a superpower skill. The sixth is empathy, being able to care about, put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about problems and solutions from, if you're in healthcare, from the patient's perspective, not your own. If you're in manufacturing, from the end user of whatever you're making, their perspective. Empathy is super important. And the last one, the seventh one, is courage, the willingness and ability to step out of your comfort zone, say something uncomfortable, stand out in a crowd if you're not normally used to that. So those are 7 superpower skills. I asked at the top, I'm going to ask again, which of those 7, self-awareness, clear, great communication, creativity, curiosity, imagination, critical thinking, personal agility, empathy, courage, which are your top 2 that you're really good at? And more importantly, which 2 do you need to work on? So I'm not talking about AI, and yet these are super critical in the AI world. So if you are not in charge of the AI era, you are not in charge of the tools that get in front of you. You are in charge of you. You are in charge of being intentional about your ability to thrive. Those skills will be well leveraged in that environment. So I want you to think clearly. I'm going to bring us back to the original list I had. I said 5 things that were important for you to take control of. First was protect your boundaries. Second was invest in relationships. Third is define your non-core skills. Fourth is enhance those skills. And I just gave you 7 superpowers. And the fifth is know your rights. Our book, Humanity, listed 10 rights that you now have and your company needs to support, and you need to know about them in order to succeed in the AI era. Right now, those rights are being stepped over and abused. People are being measured and tracked by algorithms without ever having a chance to testify whether that data was valid or not. So some of the rights that are in the book are see and the ability to, the right to see and challenge algorithms that judge you, swiftly fix algorithms findings that are wrong, psychological safety. More and more AI is going to be leveraged like social media, where we're being hacked constantly because they know in our neurons how to hack into our brain and make us do stuff that benefits the company, but not necessarily us. That's psychological safety. So the last of the 5 things that are in your control is know what rights you have and protect them, be aware of them. So I hope I've managed verbally to keep track of the list, but there were 5 things you needed to do, and there was an offshoot of 7 superpowers within that list. But those are things that you can take charge of today, regardless of what the company is doing. Now, Rosie, the obvious first answer most people would give is, well, learn Chat GPT or learn Claude. Yes, you should use those tools and you should learn them, but be you, be
Right.
intentional. The real thing, the real power is not, you can have a rudimentary, elementary understanding of Claude or the other tools and still be awesome if you are intentional about you. So I
Right.
reversed the emphasis. Even though AI is a great tool, I didn't say go learn AI. I said go focus on you and be intentional about you.
That gave everybody a ton to think about, and I really hope that they're good at writing things down, because I found myself having to make notes there. What I got out of that, in summary, is that relationships are important. So, regardless of where you are in an organization, you need to think about the relationships that you have with the people that are actually making those decisions, because those relationships are relationships that become incredibly important. Um, and when I say that, I was putting myself, as I was listening to you, I was putting myself in the shoes of perhaps somebody that was an individual contributor looking to their leader. They're having something that they may feel is being done to them. And the first thing they take away from what you said was make sure that you do have a good relationship. That's the starting point, because that's going to make a difference. The other thing is what we would say at UpSpiral is your circumstances do not define you. You always have a choice. And what I loved about what you were saying is that you were literally saying, think bigger about this. Don't just take yourself down. It's out of my control. There's a lot of things that you mentioned that are absolutely in everybody's control, that they get the right to exercise. And for me at least, I think when I'm up against something like that, my starting point is always, what is my intention? Is my intention to make sure that I keep a job? Or is my intention to think about what is being automated and how can I help that happen, but do it in such a way that the agency of the human is not lost?
Exactly.
And when you have a good relationship with people, you can have that conversation. When you come to face an issue and your thought process is balanced, in other words, you can see the good in it and you can see the perhaps risk in it and you can balance that. That's always a very palatable discussion, regardless of what you perceive your leader to look like or their habits. Everybody enjoys a balanced conversation. That's far more palatable. And I think as long as you always start with what is my intention? And to me, the other option is you absolutely have agency. You don't have to stay where you're at. You do have the choice to move, although that could be difficult. There's a lot involved in people moving. But again, you can make the best of the circumstances you find yourself in by thinking bigger and following all the tips and tricks you gave. Or perhaps think about going somewhere different if your values do not align with that organization. Because at the end of the day, you will never be happy if who you are does not align with the company that you're working with. For, I should say. Okay.
Rosie, I want to thank you for that recap because you did something that I failed to do. I should have done better. I was so intent on remembering and capturing the bullet points I wanted to get off. I didn't do the summary, which is what you did, which is why this is important. Those things that I listed give you that agency, and that relationship part is so important. I have learned about me, that introspection, that self-awareness that was number one on the superpower skills. I have learned about me. I've been called at Silver Bay Leadership Forum one of the provocateurs. I've learned about me that I need a certain group of people around me because I can be pain in the ass sometimes. I call bullshit. I call truth to power. I push. I need people who see the value in what around me, that see the value in how I see things, and will sometimes tolerate me not saying it exactly the way it could have been or should have been said. And I need those people in my world in order for me to succeed. So that exactly the way you summarized it is beautiful.
Does a workplace look like when leaders intentionally design for this human agency versus what does it look like? What could it look like if we don't do it? right? So if we don't follow it and we just give up, we say it's out of my control, what would that look like?
I want everybody to visualize the yin and yang circle, the two intersecting areas, the 6 and the 9. If we do it intentionally, the good grows bigger and the bad grows smaller. If we don't do it intentionally, the bad grows bigger and the good grows smaller, but they will always be the good and the bad. So before we talk about what do we do and what it looks like, I want everyone to be aware that both the optimists and the pessimists, both those who believe in utopia and those who believe in dystopia when it comes to AI are correct. Both are always together, like yin and yang. You do not get massive upsides without massive downsides. AI is being touted as curing cancer because we can, go in and examine at the genome level and we can change things. AI is also creating the need for massive data centers that are going to be a huge energy and water and power draw. You don't get one without the other. And the same in organizational design. You could have the best intentions. You asked me, where everything is great. Everything is great if you get greater personal agency. If you are able to be more creative, be more you in an environment, you have tools that can, if you need to make a presentation deck, can make a presentation deck for you in 15 seconds. That doesn't free you up from the thinking that has to go into it, but the manual dexterity of creating that deck may not take hours. It may take seconds. So that means you have more freedom. What are you going to do with that? So for the longest time, because I've been focused on the attention economy, I talk about the most important number in business every day that's never talked about, and it's 1,440. And that is the number of minutes in every day. And when I was getting real transactional about how to write an email, how to run a meeting, how to communicate with other, I'm saying, I can easily reduce a full day's worth of work down to 5 to 15 minutes. I can do that for you. But that's not the important thing. It's okay. Now that you have that extra time, what are you going to do with it? So it comes back to being intentional. The massive upside of AI isn't worth squat unless you are being intentional and bringing your intentional self into it. Even if you have a great environment, a great leader, you're empowered, you can work from home more, you can work from groups more, you can work wherever you want and do whatever you want more. Be aware a friend of yours might be really suffering. The digital divide is going to increase. There's going to be more people that have less access than you do, more people that have less skills than you, more people that will have less opportunities than you. So if you are lucky enough to be in that great environment, you will have more empowerment. You will have tools that can do more for you. You will have more time to create more that you want to do. Be aware, from Marvel Comics, with great power comes great responsibility. If you have that massive upside, look for somebody who's hurting. Look for somebody who's struggling, who needs help. Now, the other side of that is there's a massive downside to you. You lost your job. If it's not done well, if AI is not done well, as it's currently being executed, it's not being done well. It's going to be more focused on efficiencies for the company than it is on personal development for the individual. If you are unlucky enough to be in that environment, go back to the list that we just gave in the podcast. You need to ensure your personal agency. You need to figure out which of your skills are still useful, even in an AI environment. The only thing is you don't have the luxury of taking years to do that. You may have to figure out which of your skills are employable now. Do you become a professional facilitator? Do you coach people on how to communicate? Whatever it is that you are great at will be in high demand, but you will be under more pressure because you might be losing a job. So there's both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
And I think we always need to be aware. The most important thing I want you to remember, it's just like the stock market that always goes up, it's going to come down. No matter how rosy it is, there's somebody out there that's hurting. Look to that. Go protest the environment impact of data centers. If you are the one that's hurting, reach out to the people you know that are better skilled than you and ask for help.
Yeah. That's great advice. I think that I often imagine, well, I've recently had an experience, I should say, where I went into a doctor's office, and this doctor's office was incredibly, let's say, technology forward. And when I went in, instead of there being a person that normally checks you in, there was an iPad. And the iPad actually didn't work, so I couldn't get checked in, but there wasn't even a anybody there to know that perhaps I'd arrived. So then I got to thinking, well, this is where the intention versus the actual impact is really missing, because I feel better once I know a human knows I'm there versus
Yeah.
iPads checking me in. So, and it didn't work. So, so it struck me as I sat there and I thought, here's an example of a workplace that I'm sure is looking to, save on their cost structure. But for me, it was definitely a place where I didn't care to visit again. Simply, there's just something about that. And I think this long term thinking has to play in as we think through, okay, am I going to save more money in the short term? Or am I actually going to lose more money in the long term? Like, because maybe you wouldn't get that many patients showing up. Because, when people have issues, there is the human touch is required at those moments. There are moments where we don't need humans involved. And like you said, what I love about when you get it right is that, yes, in all those moments when you get it right, it just frees you up to do so much more. And especially helping out others that perhaps are not in that position where you were at. But wait. So
Well, let's bring it back to where we were earlier with relationships. I'm okay with the iPad and eliminating the human factor and saving money there. If if there was a person behind the desk that could help you, that knew you personally, that knew your, Rosie, yeah, long time no see. How are the kids? How's this? How's that? That we need to be investing the upside that we're all hoping for is that we all get to enhance our relationships because technology is taking off a part of the bird. So the business is going to take people out and replace it with a kiosk or an iPad. But great businesses make sure they invest back in the greater training, better in patient understanding, better patient care, whatever it is, where they invest back in the human connection.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And when you think about the leaders then that are in a position, um, or who actually directly influence the implementation of AI, what advice would you give to them?
To the leaders who are running everything,
The ones that are really have the decision making at their fingertips. What advice would you give to them?
just like we began with self-awareness, first, enhanced self-awareness about how your role is changing. Everybody in the C-suite is now replaceable instantly by AI. What is the role of leadership? You need to be thinking about that. If you are the leader, if you're in charge of that, you need to be self-aware enough to know, well, AI can take over these decisions, but these certain kind of things I need to do, and what you can let go of and what you can't let go of. So it begins at a leader as a human being. It begins with enhanced self-awareness and doing a lot more introspective work. Uh, Part of that, when I've been coaching leaders, I say, um, you asked me a question about 3 years from now, the best and the worst case scenario. I sit down with leaders 3 to 5 years from now. What impact, what do you want your legacy to be? If you disappeared 5 years from now, what impact how you leveraged AI do you want to have because you leveraged AI? What is the difference in the world that you're going to make? What is the difference for your workforce, for your customers that you're going to make? It's not just cost efficiency of a kiosk or an iPad versus a receptionist. It's what's the real impact you're going to make. So first I go introspective with them. Who are you? What's important to you? I ask them about their story. I pull out of their personal story the beginnings of why that legacy is important to them. Then after we've done that personal work, I forget whether we mentioned this in the other two podcasts, but my favorite example of really taking leaders through transformational experiences in business environments is I model a TV show that's called The Undercover Boss,
Mhm.
and where they all have to go in disguise and become the front desk clerk, of their business, or the back room clerk stocking the shelves. And they learn about what it is really like to work in their organizations. So before you go instituting all this AI stuff, learn how work gets done in your company and how AI could enhance it or destroy it, how an AI could enhance the people or destroy the people. So if I were advising leaders, it would be two core things. Know for you what kind of impact you want to have because of this new capability. What is your legacy going to be 5 years from now? And then second, go understand the invisible work that you only see through spreadsheets. Go do a front office clerk's job. Sit at the receptionist area when the iPad doesn't work and figure out how you're going to fix that. Have greater, the last two things that I mentioned in the list of 7 were empathy and courage. What I'm talking about with Undercover Boss is empathy, then the courage to make big, bold fixes based on what you've learned?
What I love in particular, and if it was me, I would say just go read. If you can, if you're short on time, just go read the 10 Bill of Rights. Because to me, Bill, that was the biggest aha moment. I thought of a typical team, like if I was responsible for it, the first thing I would do is sit down with the executive team and say, let's make some decisions together here. Because this is the framework that we're going to operate in. This is going to help us dictate where we take it from here. And I love that it's almost like it was a governance discussion in my head. Like I wanted to pick them up and say, okay, let's also figure out some other things that we want to get precious about or not. But that initial alignment, what I loved about it is it made you stop and think. It made you think more deeply about the consequences of your decisions. Because we could say, yeah, I've got to meet my efficiency number. But I think anybody reporting back to a board and saying, we first came up with these literal rules or this level of governance, and we decided that we're going to operate within this framework. From here on out, you're going to see. So perhaps maybe the efficiency may be a little less, but the longer term and risk to the organization would be drastically reduced.
See, Rosie, this is why I like you as a facilitator. I love you because you're making me look better. Because when you asked me the question, what would I advise leaders? I went through 40 years of history to things that I've done prior to this book. You brought me back to the book. Thank you. Yes. Sit down with the leaders and go through the 10 rights. That probably should have been my answer. So thank you for bringing me back to that answer. Sit down with every leader and go through the 10 rights and say, of these do we do well? Uh, which are we not doing well? And the standard change model that I use with everybody is stop, start, continue. What should we stop doing if we're going to honor these 10 rights? What should we start doing if we're going to honor these 10 rights? And what are we already kind of doing that we should keep continuing doing? So thank you for making me look better than I am today.
You're always great. And one of the things I absolutely love is why I thought about the next question, because it made me think about you, because you're always the one that will play the devil's advocate. And you have no problem doing it, which I love. And so I think about, okay, this is really drawing on all of your years of experience, right? What's the ugly truth here? What is getting in the way of leaders just simply doing the right thing? What do you think is getting in the way? What's those barriers in people's minds to we
Well, let me go real high level first, and I'll bring it back down. The unfortunate thing in accounting, people are a cost
yeah,
in the capitalist system. People are not tracked as assets. They're tracked as costs. So every company out there, whether they are publicly traded or not, and have stockholders or just, a board, they are incentivized to reduce costs and increase profits. So that is part of the deal we're making. We need to be constantly in balance to how do we reduce costs and increase profits and enhance our human beings. So it's not an either or, it's an and. That's a huge challenge for all leaders. It's difficult. I've
yeah,
run my own business for 40 years. I've failed probably more than I've succeeded. It is really hard. Um, but what are the ugly truths in the AI era that we need to be aware of? So that's universal.
yeah,
In the AI era, I need everybody to understand one line that's in the book. and it's under the right of psychological safety and mental health. And we describe what's been happening to ever since the 90s, and we had re-engineering, and we've had technology shifts constantly. We called it structural violence. Now, what that is, it's not intentional by any company, but it is real. What's happened over the last 20, 30, 40 years, but more is going to be leapfrogged astronomically in huge ways by AI, is the more corporate centered everything gets, the more we design everything around the company's needs. You have to use an iPad instead of checking in with a person. You have to fill out this form instead of that form. I may have mentioned earlier in the podcast, I go swimming every day from 6 to 7, and I have to use the app, and I had to stop swimming this morning at 6:30 because you can schedule 3 days in advance. I had to stop swimming at 6:30 so I could schedule Friday's schedule at 6:30. Otherwise I'd miss out on my opportunity. I'm doing things at that organization's convenience, not at mine. More and more, whether it's checking out at the grocery store, whatever it is, we are dealing with systems that are designed to enhance the organization's success. What that is doing is taking away personal success. And I don't mean financial or what you get paid to do your job. I mean work-life balance, energy, sleep, time off, all the things, time with your family, relationships are all being sacrificed to be more and more efficient and effective for the company. So structural violence is a term that came out in the 60s, I believe, but it was about when institutions are designed to benefit the institution, not necessarily the citizen, or in this case, the employee. So the ugly truth is our infrastructures are being more tightly and tightly and tightly controlled and will be driven by algorithms now. So they're supersized on how tightly controlled they are. And that creates more structural violence on us, on our psychological safety, on our mental well-being. So that is one thing. That is the ugly truth. The other circles back to people or costs. Most leaders are not doing AI properly because the first thing they're taking out is costs. Really, AI is the opportunity and the challenge to totally redesign work. It needs to be completely redesigned from the industrial age. We need to go back 125 years. We've been carrying the same designs. With AI, it liberates and changes all the rules. Very few leaders have gotten to that stage yet because they're still incentivized to take out costs. So the ugly truth is humanity, human-centeredness, humanness has not yet reached a burning platform level, has not yet reached a sense of urgency. Cutting out costs is the sense of urgency. I expect at some point in the next 5 years, that'll start shifting to, gee, we don't have any humans to work behind the desk after we iPad everything. So the ugly truth is human needs are being ignored right now. Upskilling is being ignored right now. Complete redesign of work is being ignored right now. They're going for the low hanging fruit, which is to take out costs, which are people.
Yeah. And that is, it's so funny because we've seen it happen year after year, and there's different things you can point to say, listen, haven't we learned our lesson on this? So So I know that we're coming up against time. So my very last question is, if we were, regardless of where somebody is in the organization, executive, manager, or just an individual contributor, what's the one thing that they could do in the next 90 days that would help create the future you're really describing that we need to be, or the responsibility that we've been talking about now? What's that one thing that they could do, regardless of level in the organization?
I kind of gave a checklist like that in the middle of this talk. So I'm going to go bigger. Normally when I'm asked what somebody can do, I get real transactional. You can do this, you can do this and this. I'm going to go bigger picture with the answer. The most important thing all of us need to do is to see differently, think differently. I just critiqued online an a very famous HR person's work because it was all about uh, agentic AI and taking reinventing HR through agents, but they didn't rethink everything first. The most important thing is understand how much this changes and open your eyes. And the most common thing that I get quoted back in reviews of the book is just a simple sentence: AI is a power shift, not a task shift. If you begin to understand that, completely new possibilities open up. You have, there's discussions of people that are creating $1 billion companies with 1 to 10 employees because agents and other things can change that. That's what enables that is the task shift. You don't have to have a CFO, a CMO, a chief marketing officer. You can have a marketing app. Yes, those are task shifts, but seeing the vision for how products and drugs and healthcare and entertainment and everything can completely change. It is a total power shift, and you should have more power as a result of this. So more personal agency. The most important thing is do not accept the layoffs that are being blamed for AI. You have more capability. This is not a technical issue. The difference between power shift and task shift is a leadership issue. It is a leader who has a vision or a leader who does not have a vision. So that's probably the biggest thing I would recommend in the first 90 days. I gave you a checklist in the middle of the talk, but think differently, see differently, open your eyes to how different your world can be or should be.
Yeah, I love that. I love the ask yourself, do you have adequate human agency in the midst of what you're doing? And if you don't, if you can't say categorically yes, you need to rethink it and go back to that new lens you talked about.
And where we began,
Where,
be intentional about the future you are creating.
yeah,
Do it through intention. See differently. Now be intentional about the future you're creating.
love it. Well, thank you so much, Bill. It's been great. I really enjoyed our time together. And that's it. We're going to wrap up for this third series.